Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's book review time today and I'm going to be taking a look at the Ringlander series by Michael S. Jackson. So we have The Path and the Way and we've got the novella The Battle That Was Lost. So I've been really busy recently and it feels like such a long time since I did a book review, and I really want to get back to that to really highlight some of the great titles I've been reading. So Ringlander, The Path and the Way is a book that I've had my eye on for a long time, and when I saw it come down to a really good price on Amazon, I couldn't really not get it. It was also one of the titles that's on my list of self-published books to read in 2022, and when the author offered me a review copy of The Battle That Was Lost, his new novella, it felt like a perfect time for me to read The Path and the Way. So I read the novella first because where possible I like to read in chronological order, and I find that reading the short book first, i.e. the novella, gives me a real feel for the author's writing, as well as in many cases giving me an introduction to the world, the characters, some of the events and so forth. In this instance we feature a battle that is mentioned several times in the novel, The Path and the Way, and also we meet several of the characters who feature in the book as well. We've got a couple of different point of view characters, and there's also a couple of flashbacks which, amongst other things, detail how some of those characters were first introduced to each other and started working together. The writing here is good, and the overall story of the novella I think serves as a good accompaniment to The Path and the Way. Sadly though, it didn't quite work for me, and I really think that if I'd read these two the other way around, I would have had a much better experience with the novella. So the novella really fleshes out some of the events that you read about in The Path and the Way, but by reading the novella first, I couldn't help feeling that something was missing or wasn't quite getting the full picture, and that really did have a bit of a negative impact on my overall enjoyment of the novella. Now onto the main event, which is the novel itself, The Path and the Way, and I've said several times in several videos, including already in this one, that I like to read the prequel novella to gain an idea of the writing style. As much as it's about meeting the characters and some of the events, the main thing for me is to get an introduction to the writer's style and see whether it's going to be a style that I think I'll enjoy. For me, because of the experience that I had reading The Battle That Was Lost first, I would say to do this by reading the first chapter of The Path and the Way first, which you can find as a digital sample on many of the retail sites like Amazon. Here, the opening chapter did a great job of sucking me into the world, giving me a bit of action, a bit of mystery, a bit of world building, and introducing me to the main character of the novel. So here we meet Kiera, who is out in the frozen wilds. She's been tracked by hunters and she's doing a great job of evading them or of besting them when she's not able to get away. Her brother has gone missing, and along with her father she's trying to find him. We do get some point of view chapters from her brother throughout the story, but I won't go into the details of where he is and what he's up to for spoiler purposes. We also have a bunch of other point of view characters throughout the story, from key characters who are involved in the rebellion against their oppressors, the Boer, and also we do get into the mind of some of the Boer themselves, so I do like that element of it. You get to see a bit of both sides of this particular conflict. Now, one aspect that I've been particularly enjoying in some of the fantasy that I've been reading this year is rebellion, and as well as the rising up and the actual fighting back, here you get to see some of the other side of it with the intrigue and the secrecy of spies who are getting really very close to the enemy and risking their lives for the cause. And some of my favourite scenes in the book were from this side of the story, with close calls and sacrifice making for very exciting reading, and with Thea becoming one of my favourite characters in the book because she was involved in much of this. Now, one thing that really stands out in this book is the world building itself. In the written sense, it's good solid stuff with plenty of history and lore built into it, and you also get a feel for a bit of the physical world as well. But it's that physical world itself where this book really stands out. First of all, it's a very unique world itself in terms of the map and sort of how the world looks, and that gives the series and the people its name, Ringlander or Ringlanders. I think the map itself is absolutely beautiful in the detail in which it was made, and there's a whole blog post on the author's website going through the start to finish process with loads of images and detail of work in progress as the map was being made. And for anyone who, like me, loves a good fantasy map, I would say it's definitely something to go and take a look at. For me as well, I think the physical world that Jackson has created here really helps with the book itself, because the world almost becomes a character in itself with various traits and characteristics that almost give it a personality of its own. Likewise, as a physical book, you can tell that the author has put a lot of time, effort and heart into this, with beautiful interior illustrations, a really gorgeous cover, and you've also got underneath the dust jacket on the naked boards of the hardcover, you've got a text-free version of that artwork as well, which looks really, really stunning. The words inside are what really matter here though, and overall I had a really good time with The Path and the Way. I had some characters who I was really invested in over a number of different overlapping storylines, which gave us politics, war and rebellion, family, and much, much more. There was also a hint of animal companions, which I do quite like, and I was very interested in what we had here, although for me this didn't really amount to as much as I'd expected and kind of hoped to see. Now, the one thing that I didn't really like as much about this book was the kind of multiverse aspect that was introduced in it. This is something that's visible throughout the book, but it's not really kind of brought into focus until a little bit later. It was around about the 50% mark that this really got mentioned, and you had all of these events in the earlier part in the book, these strange things happening, which were brought into focus by this kind of revelation because it gave a reasoning for them. There are holes being ripped in the fabric of the world, and it's causing these almost natural disasters. The waterways reversing, for instance, which is causing all sorts of problems for the people of this world. So although these kind of holes in the universe give reasoning for those events, and it creates a sense of fear in the characters because they don't understand what's happening, they can see these things happening, but they don't know what they mean and why they're happening and what the overall impact of them is going to be. For me, it just didn't really do it. I felt that there was more than enough going on in the world without these kind of portals, if you like, and the effects that they had. Overall though, it didn't really impact my enjoyment too much. It was more a case of something that didn't really work for me in a book that otherwise did. So on to my ratings, and because I do rate these very differently, I only give a star rating to a novella, and because I kind of shot myself in the foot, I feel, with regards to the reading order, I didn't enjoy The Battle That Was Lost as much as I thought that I might, and as much as I might have done had I read it second. So for this one, I ended up going with 3 stars. For Ringlander, The Path and the Way, the actual novel itself, I had a much better time. There was obviously a lot more space to put everything together into a really enjoyable story, and I did have a good time with this, leading to me giving it 4 stars. In terms of my weighted ratings then, for enjoyment, I ended up giving The Path and the Way 17 because I did have such a good time with it. It was, despite a couple of little bits here and there, it was a very enjoyable read for me. For the world building, I thought there was a really good job done here with some of the lore and the history that you get here, but also for me, the main thing being the actual world itself, and I thought it was such a good job with such a great level of detail. I ended up giving this one 18 out of 20. For the characters, I had several, as I mentioned, that I actually really enjoyed. There were a few that I didn't enjoy as much, but you get that in any story. And I gave these 17 out of 20 because I thought they were really nicely done, and there was some really good fleshing out for some of them. For the plot, this was one of the points that I didn't enjoy quite as much. The other bits definitely made up for that though, so I felt that this was more about the characters than the actual plot for me, and as a result I ended up giving this one 15 out of 20. I felt the writing style was quite neat, I had no issues with it, it was really nicely done. I gave this one 7 out of 10. And the pacing was definitely very good, and this one I gave 4 out of 5 because it was really, really well paced throughout the entire book. For my discretionary section then at the end, I gave 3 out of 5 because I've mentioned that there was some really great artwork within this book, as well as a beautiful cover and map that goes along with it as well. So in particular, the hardback version, like I have, is a very nice addition to my shelves. So that gives The Path and Way a total of 81%, which is a really good score, and it does seem to be actually one of my favourite scores. I've got a number of really enjoyable books, really good quality stories that have scored 81, so Michael S. Jackson finds himself in very good company. So there we have my thoughts on The Path and the Way. As usual, if you've read this, drop me a note down below in the comments. Let me know how you got on with it. Did you have the same kind of experience I did? If you've read the novella as well, whether you read it before or after reading the novel. As usual, whilst you're down there, give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, hit subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see future content and reviews from me. If you want to interact with me elsewhere, you'll find all of my social media and support the channel links, including Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, my book club Discord, and also my Patreon. I hope to see you again in another video soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books, Bye for now.